back to GTD, doing stuff a little bit different this week. See if you guys like it. Dropping some different episodes for different sports. But we're starting with the big one, NASCAR, Homestead. Tyler Reddick's going to the championship 4. I'm so happy. What a crazy last 2 laps, Keegan.
What a
race.
Talk
about this for way too long.
Not even the last 2 laps. The whole race. I'm just gonna go and say best playoff race I've ever watched in this current play. I mean, the only play in the playoff format. Best playoff race I've ever seen. Yes, this
consistent passing, every line work.
Yes.
They were talking about it in the broadcast. You could enter low, and then it looked like you got arrow type, but no, it was the car just running the lines they wanted.
The drivers who were in the playoffs, everyone except Logano, who's already itched himself for the next round. Your top 7 were all we're all playoff drivers. It's probably honestly because they know they can't pass at Martinsville, so they saw this as like the last race. Like if you're Elliott or Blaney or one of those guys even Reddick, this is probably the must-win race you need to win because you can toss Martinsville out the window unless you qualify front row.
Yeah, and especially for the Fords because the Fords have struggled in qualifying recently. So you look at a Blaney now going into Martinsville. I'm a little bit worried about him, but let's focus on Homestead first and First off, let's talk about the strategy from Tyler Reddick staying out the way that they did.
There's so many different strategies. You had Reddick's, you had Hamlin staying out, and then you had the typical strategy, which most people ran, which was getting tires earlier and just seeing if you can run away from everybody.
Yeah, so normally I'm a guy that likes to short pit. If I were a crew chief, that would be my thing. I love short pitting probably because I grew up watching Jimmy Johnson. That's something they used to do all the time, he and Chad Knaus. And so I see all these cars coming on the cycle. I'm like, okay, one of these guys is probably winning this race. Then Denny Hamlin comes in. And I don't know if you watched the truck race this weekend, but at the truck race, they were talking about, they're supposed to catch up to this guy in 10 laps, and then the leader won by 19 seconds or something. So I'm like, okay, the overcut or running long or whatever you want to call it is not going to work here. And it worked for Denny Hamlin in stage 2, but had just about the same gap in stage 3, so again, maybe he can come through. Then by the end of it, it doesn't look like he's going to have the pace to do. You're thinking, okay, this is between maybe Elliott, Blaney, Larson, all at the front here. Then Tyler Reddick, you had staying out until the car basically ran out of gas. Yeah. And I was texting Keaton, I'm like, I need someone to hit the wall. I need someone to spin out. And then
someone did.
Yeah.
But it was after Reddick dove into the pits.
But it all worked out. Because then everyone else had been out there for so long. Billy Scott and Tyler Reddick, they stayed out so long that he stayed out after that caution. Everyone else pitted. Tyler Reddick to the lead. And then I'm like, oh no, tire deficit at Homestead. You're going to be absolutely cooked. Even though it's only 2 laps, tire deficit.
We saw what 4 laps happened in stage 2, and they just blew past those guys in the restart.
Yeah, then immediately on the restart, Reddick all the way back to 4th. I'm like, well, that's it. I guess we're not going to the championship 4 because I was, like you said, worried about Martinsville. But the battle between Blaney and Hamlin at the front, even before Reddick got there, the different lines back and forth, and I felt, as a Chase Elliott fan, I want to get your thoughts on this right quick. I felt like Chase Elliott, for most of this race, had the fastest car, and then for maybe like the last 80 laps, it kind of broke. So I don't know, what do you think happened there?
I agree. You've seen the speed Chase Elliott showed last weekend for weeks now. He's constantly been one of the top 3 fastest cars consistently of recent in the playoffs, and you really saw it at Las Vegas. Obviously, got caught up in a wreck. You never saw what would happen then, and then you especially saw it at Homestead when it looked like he was gonna get to the front and dominate and probably go on to win the race. And then, like you said, in stage 3, just didn't have the speed, maybe didn't make the right adjustments. Who knows what happened? Maybe tried some tire pressure things, didn't work out. But yeah, they kind of just fell off. But it seemed like what was great about this is every driver who was in the playoffs at one point in that race could have won the race, had the best car in the race. I mean, Blaney, there's points where Blaney had the best car. There's points where Larson for sure had the best car driving up through the field. Hamlin, there's points where he had the best car when he was driving down the leaders in stage 2 and past Elliott. Reddick obviously won the race. I mean, all those drivers had the best car at some point. It was just when did they have the best car and was it the right time and the right moves?
Yeah, and finally you saw it with the last couple laps, the move Blaney put on Hamlin, and at that point I thought Blaney had won the race.
Me too.
And he takes the lead going into the final lap. I'm like, okay, maybe Hamlin has a run. But then Reddick's right on the back of these 2 guys. And at that point, I stood up out of my chair, and I'm standing like this behind my chair in front of my monitor, and Reddick sends it into turn 1, and I go, oh, well, there goes his chance. Because the bottom hadn't worked.
Right.
For the most part all day. You would get passed back on the outside line. You had to take multiple laps. But
Elliott made the bottom work all day.
I would say Elliott and Blaney had the best 2 cars in the bottom all day. They were the best at making it work. But for Reddick, that had not been his car's strong suit. So he sends it down there, then manages to get up in front of Hamlin. I'm like, oh, we might have a chance here. But obviously, surely Blaney blocks the top. And
That's what I want to get to. What are your thoughts on what Blaney did in turns 3 and 4?
From my perspective, watching it back, I think what Blaney wanted to do was essentially kind of a half slide job and drive it in super hard and then block the high line in the middle of the corner, make Reddick try to turn under him. However, I don't know what kind of tire pressures Tyler Reddick was running. I don't know what it was. If he just... I have no idea. But I told you this yesterday. Sending it into turn 3 in that last corner... It looked like Reddick was about to Ross Chastain it with how much speed he sent off into that corner. I have no idea how that car stuck. Blaney didn't seem to know either when they interviewed him afterwards. And I think people are giving Blaney a lot of flack about not protecting the top there, which I understand. But I also don't think you can account for a guy on older tires at that point running a lap that was almost 3/4 of a second faster than anyone else in the top 10 that lap.
Yeah.
That was just a freak lap from Tyler Reddick. They said on the broadcast, he saw his chance and he went out and he took that win. Yeah. And I think it's less of a bad move from Blaney, mess up from Hamlin, and more of a Tyler Reddick took his opportunity and won that race.
And I mean, he's been one of the best at running the high lines and ripping the wall at any track you do that at the last 3 years. He's been better than anybody or just as good as everybody else. So I mean, I'm not shocked that's what, like, even if Blaney stays high the entire time, I don't think you see Reddick dive down to the bottom. Not in 3 and 4. In 1 and 2 he did, but in 3 and 4 he knows he's so good on the outside. I think you see him stay on the outside until he gets to the bumper, and then at that point, that point you do something there to try to race back to the start finish line. But I think he had his mindset halfway down the back stretch and was like, "This is what I'm doing." Obviously, I mean, you saw him. He drove it in so hard. That's something you don't really just do on the fly. That's something you got to have predetermined. Like, I'm doing this no matter what this guy does.
Yeah.
So credit for him. I mean, you had the conversation last week. The whole sport was talking about, oh, is he too aggressive? That move at Las Vegas was too aggressive and cost 3 cars a race, whatever, and blah 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 blah. But this is what people are talking about when they say this is the reward versus the risk, and that punched his seat in the championship 4. Like, yes. He flipped last week, was not in a good position, but he makes a similar move, or not a similar move, but he makes an aggressive move the next week, and now he's in the championship. So I think the rewards outweigh the risk.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about last week. It's this aggressiveness is what makes Tyler Reddick so great, and you saw it here. And while we're talking about aggressiveness, let's talk about the guy who it didn't pay off so well for. Let's talk about Kyle Larson. And that move, I know a lot of people are going, Austin Dillon again. That was not Austin Dillon's fault. And just... I think a little bit overeager from Larson. He was faster than Blaney at that point. He just was.
I think so too.
And you had, 13 laps left at that point, I think?
Yeah.
So you have plenty of time, if you're Kyle Larson, to get by Austin Dillon and keep trying. And I think just pushing the issue a bit too much, now he finds himself on the wrong side of the cut line. And it's a lot of the similar discussion that we had with Tyler Reddick last week. I think what makes this a bit different is I think it's more obvious that is not on. From the way Blaney takes the line into the corner where Austin Dillon is, I respect him for going for the move. I still respect the driver for going for the move, and I'm not going to say that was the wrong idea to do that. I just think that one was maybe a little bit less on than what you saw from Reddick last week, but either way, I'm never going to fault a driver for being aggressive trying to go for the championship in that spot.
Yeah, I don't fault him here, especially his crew chiefs probably was feeding him information. Hey, Ryan Blaney has had the best long run car out of anybody on the track all day at that point. So he's probably telling him, you don't want to get caught behind a lap car, and if you can get a 2-for-1 here, do it. And I mean that's their MO with the 5 car. They tell Larson, I mean, you're one of the most aggressive drivers in the sport. You're one of the best drivers in the sport. Just be you. Don't think twice about anything. Just do it. And you've seen that cost him mistakes this year. But then again, he's also got the most wins this year. So once again, the rewards outweigh the risk with guys like Larson and Reddick who know when to make the aggressive moves. And yeah, obviously it's not going to pay off every time, but it pays off enough to where they don't have to think twice about doing it in the future.
Yeah, I completely agree. And before we move on and talk about playoff stuff, I want to spotlight a couple guys here that had great days. And actually, a couple guys in their team. AJ Allmendinger and Carson Hocevar are the two guys that really stand out. Allmendinger started 32nd, ended up 8th, had a great run, top 10 in stage 2, and then it felt like Carson Hocevar was running right at the edge of the top 5 all day, and at the very end kind of bowed out for the playoff guys. But great runs for both of them. I love Hocevar. I think he's an incredible talent. I think he's a great driver. If Tyler Reddick is kicked out of the sport because of the 23-11 charter lawsuit thing, Carson Hocevar might be my guy next year. So we'll see what happens with that. Great run for him and Allmendinger. And then one that I think kind of went under the radar was the performance of the entire Stewart-Haas team this week. Ryan Preece 10th from starting 35th. Josh Berry qualified 12th, finished 11th. Chase Briscoe qualified 13th, finished 12th. And then Noah Gragson also top 20. When was the last time we saw all 4 SHR cars in the top 20?
It's been a minute. Maybe when Boyer was there at Harvick and some other guys. But I think they're kind of feeling like, we're not even the drivers. The whole company's like, we really only have 2 more throws at this. Like, let's just give it all we got and see what happens. And now if you see them at if you see them at Phoenix, just try to ruin one of the not like wreck the championship driver.
Noah Gragson just boots Kyle Larson into the wall.
But if you see them just try to like go dominate that race and just put all 4 guys up front and see what they can do, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. It's their last race as a franchise or the charter or whatever, a racing team. I mean, obviously they have the one team next year, but none of those drivers are going to be there. So, and a lot of those employees aren't going to be there either. So I think if you see him try to win at Phoenix, go do it. Go win the race. Don't forget about the playoff drivers. Go win your race and just let them battle for second or third or just in front of the other 3 to determine that battle. You go win your race. And that would be exciting and emotional for the sport. And I think a good thing, especially after listening to, I don't know if you listened to Tony Stewart on the Happy Hour with Kevin Harvick, just kind of talk about the direction of the sport, him getting out of it. But if you want to get inside the mind of one of the owners of Stewart-Haas Racing, go listen to that. Tony Stewart gives a lot of insight about why it's happening, what went into this happening, certain things that are kind of led to this, and it's a good listen. So I recommend that. But yeah, moving on to Martinsville, here are your drivers in the red right now. Larson, 7 out. Hamlin, 18 out. Blaney, 38 out. Chase Elliott, 43 in the red. So I think obviously Elliott and Blaney must win situations. Yeah. Hamlin, maybe not mathematically must win, but in the next gen Martinsville, he better qualify really well, probably in a must win. Larson, not a must win. Still -7 in the red, which is not great. Martinsville, we've touched on a little bit. Next gen car can't really pass. Qualifying, very important. Track position, very important. Fords, not been great here this year at any short track or just qualifying of late. So who are your drivers out of the playoffs, and who do you have winning the race?
My drivers out of the playoffs, which might give away who I have winning the race, my drivers out of the playoffs are Byron, Larson, Hamlin, and Blaney. So, if you're a big fan of logic, you would know that means Chase Elliott is in for me. I have Chase Elliott winning this weekend. I think Christopher Bell is good. I think plus 29, he's fine. He has speed at Martinsville. Usually he runs well. I think he'll be okay. And I just don't see a way that you don't see one of these Hendrick Chevys in at Phoenix with how good they are at Martinsville all the time. And Chase Elliott runs so well here. I think that he is the one to deliver. I think he wins this weekend. You've mentioned they've been bringing faster and faster cars as we get down to the end of the year here, and I think they have their best shot this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to have a great day. I think he's going to have the best day out of all the Hendrick cars, and probably all the Chevy. Well, all the Chevys are Hendrick cars. So out of all the Hendrick cars in the playoffs.
This is Ross Chastain or Reach.
But I'm a little – so who I have winning the race or who I have written down to win the race and my 4 drivers moving on to the championship 4 don't really align. But I'm just going to – I'm going to stick with it. Yeah. I have Hamlin winning Martinsville. So I have him therefore bumping out it would be William Byron. But it is hard to picture a world where one of these Chevys isn't in. I mean, they're leading the manufacturer points by a good margin. Hendrick is winning the owner's points by a good margin, and to see them not make the championship 4 would be criminal. But I mean, plus 29 at Martinsville is hard to, like, you're pretty good unless you have some failure or something.
On, like, lap 2.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty.
Which with JGR engines this year.
And Christopher Bell has been the driver to where things have gone wrong for that team.
If the clutch
it's
just
been
fell
the
out
20.
of that car on lap 2, I wouldn't even be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this started last year at Phoenix when he just had the brake issue at Phoenix, and then this year we just got a bunch of issues. So I guess I have Reddick, Logano, Hamlin, and Bell. Barring an issue, if Bell has an issue and I'm choosing another driver to go in, Kyle Larson.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's got to be Larson. Yeah. I just think that I don't think there's a way where even if Hamlin or Elliott wins, I think there is no way that Kyle Larson leaves Martinsville on less points than William Byron.
Yeah, I would agree with that. 100% I agree with that. But only one thing we can do now: sit back on Sunday and watch Martinsville. Yay!
Yeah, so one thing I am curious about, I know we talked about Homestead a lot and wanting them to be, Homestead should be the finale, by the way. That after that, Homestead
dude, this
has to
week
be,
they should come out with an announcement this week saying,
yeah,
You're
Homestead
at Homestead.
2026. Yeah, but
or just go on a rotational schedule with the championship.
I don't like that. I think
Really, I
Homestead
feel like that'd be the most inclusive thing. You have Homestead, Phoenix, and it's got to be a warm track. Texas, no, not Texas, obviously, but Homestead and Phoenix and some other track.
I legitimately don't care because every year Homestead is one of the best races, regardless of the package, for racing, for on-track passes. It set records and lead changes for itself this week, and I don't know if you saw it, there was an interview a couple weeks ago that NASCAR did, walking around asking different drivers, if you could only race at one track every week, the entire calendar, where would it be? And I bet 75% of them said Homestead Miami. So if you want to listen to your drivers, if you want to listen to their input, that has to be the championship race, in my opinion.
I think if they keep it Phoenix next year, maybe it's too late to change it.
Yeah, it's too late for next year.
But the year after,
2026,
it should be Miami, and I think it will be. And I think the fans will hope it will be. So. I think NASCAR's kind of gotten the consensus. They've run at Phoenix for what? Almost close to 10 years now.
No, it started in 2020.
Oh, was it 2020? So
yeah, Elliott was the first champion at
That's
Homestead.
right. That's right.
So Phoenix.
So 4 to 5, they'll run. That'll be 5 years after next season.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good run for it.
I do think it's interesting though that for the third year in a row, we think someone outside the bubble wins their way in at Martinsville. Seems to be kind of a theme.
Well, for years, even at Phoenix or Homestead, the championship driver won the race. It's just how it happened. So I feel like Martinsville, the final cutoff race is a similar situation when it comes to things like that.
Yeah, although wouldn't it be crazy? Because if you have a Denny Hamlin win, that would mean 3 out of the final 4 Toyotas.
That would be crazy.
With Bell, Hamlin, and Reddick, that would be...
Well, the real villain is Joey Logano, who stole a precious playoff spot from one of our precious playoff drivers.
Listen, it goes back to hate the game, not the player. Hate the playoff system, not Joey Logano.
Hate the Alex Bowman guy who forgot to eat his tacos.
Yeah, Alex Bowman still ran well too. He was.
That's what I'm saying.
You got to imagine that he's in like Hendrick B-Tech equipment right now, and he still finished 7th in that race.
Yeah,
so,
he's definitely secured his job. He's not going anywhere. He will be in Hendrick.
But Justin Haley.
He
spun out twice.
Well, they may go get Tyler Reddick.
If Tyler Reddick goes to the 48, me as a Jimmy Johnson Tyler Reddick fan might explode.
Be like, oh, I know you. So I've heard you've kind of not have a seat. How about you come over here?
Bring back the 48.
How about you come over here?
Yes.
Whoa, you don't like Alex Bowman in the 48?
No, I love Alex Bowman in the 48, but I'm already a Tyler Reddick fan. I love Alex Bowman.
No, I get that.
Honestly, if people go back and watch our first episodes from the start of the year, the 180 we've done on Alex Bowman is actually incredible.
It is. You really fall in love with the guy. I fell in love with him. I think the quote was, "I'm gonna wake up naked on my bathroom floor again." Yeah. And I was like, "There's my guy."
I've been on board with this guy since I think May this year when he really started to run well. He turned it around. Make no mistake though, the Austin Dillon hate.
I was about to say, I was about to mention Austin Dillon myself. Yeah, Austin Dillon is still there.
Yeah, I think Austin Cindric's got himself a little bit out of the doghouse for me as well though, based on this year. He's been competitive. He almost moved on to the round of 8.
He's been better of late. Yeah, better recent.
So. One Austin out of the doghouse, the other is in it. But that, I think, is it for NASCAR this week as we kind of talked about nonsense for the last 3 or 4 minutes here. So make sure to catch the other episodes this week. We'll have one for football. We'll have one for F1. And then obviously with the World Series going on, we got to have one for baseball. So keep tuned in the rest of the week. Thank you guys for watching this, and we will see you next time.